r/ask Reddit. Which movie villain do you agree with? Magneto. He always thought humans would try to destroy mutants and he was right because they tried. He might have not been completely right, but man, it's hard not to feel some sympathy for him after the shitty hand that life dealt him early on. As much as I'll miss Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, I will miss Ian McKellen's performance as Magneto. Him along with his real life best friend, Patrick Stewart, were absolutely perfect as Professor X and Magneto. They could not have cast anyone else as Professor X without it being a huge missed opportunity. I mean, he survived a Nazi concentration camp as a child. It's not much of a stretch to imagine it happening again to mutants. Gordon Ramsay from Kitchen Nightmares. GR falls squarely in the anti-hero category. Think The Punisher but for shitty restaurant owners. Captain Hook. If a little boy chopped off your hand and fed it to a crocodile, you'd probably want to kill him too. Didn't he only get his hand chopped off because he was trying to kill the boy? To add insult to injury, he had to get a used hook from a second-hand store. The dad from Dirty Dancing. He was just trying to keep his underage daughter from ducking the local troublemaker. A local troublemaker he logically thought had knocked up a girl, got her a dodgy abortion, and was now trying to duck his daughter. Dude was just trying to protect his daughter from a predator, from the information he had. My favorite line in that whole movie is when said troublemaker tells baby something to the effect of, "Your dad did something I never could have done for my friend," after he saves her life. He isn't angry at her dad's dismissal of him, or even the accusations made. He's just thankful that his friend is going to be okay. That one dumpy line makes the movie for me for some reason. T-Rex from Jurassic Park. Also, the Indominus Rex. You made a living kill machine, with abilities that far exceed those of your measures to control it, and expect it to live its life in a small cage like a cat? Heck, even cats won't stay in cages. I was so irritated when I watched the movie. You make a monster amalgamation of megapredators, you give it opposable thumbs, and then you gave it a stealth mode, and then you stuff it in a tiny paddock it barely fits in, away from any social contact. Why the duck did you think this was a good idea? Dr. Freeze. The guy just wanted to find a way to save his wife. Batman even once tried to help him with it. So many Batman villains either got the shit end of some stick or another, or were just really misunderstood and trying to get through with disordered thinking. Part of the reason I love Batman stories. It's to present contrast about how the worst moment of your life can either make you or break you. For every Bruce Wayne and Don Grayson, there was the Joker, if we believe Killing Joke to be his origin, the Riddler, Penguin, Two-Face, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, etc. Doc Ock. I'm not saying that I'd sooner rob a bank than beg for grant money, but I get where he's coming from. I just like how that movie was made in the 2000s but still had Ock carrying sacks with $sign out of the bank. Mutwo. Making stronger versions of existing Pokemon is basically the point of Pokemon breeding. But if he wasn't stopped, he probably would have killed all of humanity. Mew would have saved us eventually. If not, I have Mega Gyarados and Darkrai that can help out. General Grievous. His people were massacred by the Jedi for reasons that were false. He was then physically crippled for the rest of his life, outside of his exoskeleton, and was told that the Jedi were to blame. He destroyed as many as he could and took their weapons as a trophy to exact his revenge for the Jedi ruining his life and pushing his people to the brink of extinction. It's even more tragic than that. When Count Dooku and the Intergalactic Banking Clan offered to rebuild him as a cyborg, Grievous agreed on the condition they didn't alter his mind. But they did anyway. So while Grievous believed that he'd always been the cold-blooded Jedi hunter into the past, he probably wasn't as extreme as he is during the Clone Wars. Not a movie, but Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town. As an adult, you get it. You want sleep. You want cake. You want quiet. You want to be lazy. There were moments where you could be like, I feel your bro. And of course, deep down there, you want to be the number one. Now listen closely. Poison Ivy. All she wants is more plants and less destruction. In No Man's Land she moves into Central Park, I think, and just stays there. No crime boss approach. No city takeover, just walks into the park. Batman goes into the park, walks back out and suddenly the city starts getting fed by these fast growing plants. I don't remember if they explain that part, but of the villains in the Batman universe she's usually the least tyrannical, I think is the best way to say that. Batman made a deal with her essentially. He wouldn't take her to the prison for her previous crimes, help protect her territory in no man's land as long as she would grow food for the populace. Wicked Witch of the West. Beach dropped a house on my sister and stole her shoes, I'd be out for blood too. I mean, when your name has wicked in it, at some point you just have to lean in. Luke Skywalker. I mean, obviously he was a terrorist insurgent bent on destroying critical infrastructure, but you can't blame him for his resent about the unfortunate incident with his aunt and uncle. I like it when writers give the villain a convincing motive like that. Having him succeed ultimately was really a bold narrative choice on George Lucas's part. Hades. Not in any specific movie, but just the fact that he's always a villain despite him just chilling in the underworld, doing his job, and not causing mass genocide, like the other gods. The worst thing he did was kidnap a teenage girl, but compared to Zeus, the hero in all these damn movies, he's not that bad. Agreed. The vilification of Hades is ridiculous. The wolves in The Day After Tomorrow. Just some hungry boy doing their best. The real villains of that movie were the fools who burnt the antique books for warmth rather than literally everything else in the room, including replaceable books. There was a whole section of tax law. Not from a movie, but Scar from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Buddy had all his people pretty much wiped out by the government and then targets government alchemists in revenge. Brotherhood did such a good job with setting up Scar as a villain, and then slowly revealing the truth about the Ishvalan Civil War. Megamind. But if you were to say that he wasn't a villain, then Hal BC, he's right, there is no Queen of England. He wasn't a villain, he was a supervillain. Chief Inspector Dreyfus from the Pink Panther movies. Maybe I wouldn't have gone as far as he did, but I understand his frustration. Well, I am not sure if it was the exact same character, but in A Shot in the Dark, the first movie, he purposefully assigns Inspector Clouseau to the case because he's being paid off, so he puts the most incompetent man he has on the job. So I think it's established that he's a straight up bad dude. Barbossa and his crew from Pod-One. They found a bunch of gold coins sitting around, traded them as currency like anyone would, and were severely punished for no good reason. If you think about it, had the rum runners not showed up, Jack would have starved to death or shot himself on the island he was marooned on. So I'd say that Barbossa's mutiny was cause for punishment. Not to mention they threw Bootstrap Bill in the sea stuck to a cannon to die. That's pretty messed up too. The Grinch. He just wants to live alone in his gaff with a dog, and the Who people won't stop bothering him. The machines from the Matrix. The humans attacked first, going as far as blocking out the sun to end them. The machines create a new reality for the humans that is much better than the alternative of living in the sewers in the real world. The only reason Agent Smith became problematic was because Neo gave him new code. I really wanted the actual story to turn out that the machines recognized we had met the threshold our planet could survive and that we were doomed. They stuck us in pods while they waited for the doomed Earth to heal. Essentially WALL-E. They continued to breed us, but in simulation so we could still have choices in propagation. They tried to make a paradise. We rejected it. So they made Earth as nice as possible and tried to give our species the tools it needed to continue developing our culture. They left humans outside of the Matrix to serve as a control group. I think it would have been more compelling if the Outlaws were the result of the machines trying to leave as much intellectual autonomy in place as possible, and dealing with an occasional neo-unacceptable annoyance to keep humanity's free will. Roy Batty. He's an escaped slave who is pissed his girlfriend and friends will die soon anyway from 4-year lifespans they were genetically engineered with. The main people he and his group kills or injures are morally bankrupt genetic engineers who became rich off slavery and corrupt racist cops. The book paints them in a very different light. They lack empathy and don't really understand why it's important. The probe from the voyage home. All it wanted to do was talk to some whales. When I saw Spider-Man Homecoming, I was like, hey, wait a minute, Adrian Toomes, Vulture, actually has a point here. The government and Tony Stark completely ducked him over with malice aforethought. After that opening scene, I was like, duck Tony Stark. I'm with Toombs on this one. My fiance has a theory that a lot of Spider-Man villains are analogs for disabled people and poverty. It's rather noticeable how many of them are physically disabled in some way and turn to supervillain stuff after being really screwed over by society. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.